Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get down.
All right, Dance World. Today, I got another jewel for you. Like I always do, I go hunting for the diamonds in the rough. And today, your boy, Dub, Gentleman of Production, have found another diamond in the rough. None other than Mr. Boogaloo Bill himself, out of Oakland, California, McClymonds High School, back in the day, original. Say hello to the people, Bill.
Hey, what's going down, people? How y'all doing out there?
Man, today, this interview, we're going to take it way back. Mr. Bill got some information for us and some history for us, and I know we're going to enjoy it, so we're going to step right into it. So, Bill, where you from? Tell the people where you from, and when about did you start dancing, and what did you first see when you started dancing?
Okay. I'm originally from San Francisco, HP, Potrero Hill, Sunnydale Projects. Shout out to them 3 spots. I moved to the East Bay when I was about 10 or 11 years old. First Berkeley, then Oakland. I saw Boogaloo or some bits of it, 69, 70. I attempted to do it in 1971. I was going to Westlake Junior High, and just I and a couple of cats there, I kind of got the bug. I didn't get my real indoctrination to the urban part of it until I got to McClymonds. When I got there, that's when I started to see all the real ones.
Okay, wow. That's incredible, man. You seen it as early as, 69, 70, man. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 60 years old.
Wow. Wow, brother. Life done treated you right, man. 60 years old, brother.
I feel blessed, brother. I feel blessed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So continue. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. So my real indoctrination to it was when I got to McClymonds. And I was privy to the beginnings. There was a style called head snatching. Some people call it head hunting. And I got a chance to witness some of the greats. Kenny Chambers, Mark Chambers, Michael Chambers, the Chambers brothers. Most people know Kenny as Dick Chambers. And then you had Donald Jones, and you had Leon Jones, and you had Marvin DeBose. I know I'm probably leaving out a few, but those were the pioneers. I started out with that, with that particular style of it.
And what year did you get to McClymonds?
I got to McClymonds in 74.
1974?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. So with that, when you seen these guys, what was the style of dress that you seen from a Boogaloo? What gave that essence that, his style was together? Or, how did they approach the dance floor? Was it a style, and was it a form of dressing, and what did they bring to the table?
Well, I think with every genre, understand that this was back in the 70s. So we weren't wearing beavers. We were wearing apple hats. And so the style still back then was still bell bottoms, and this thing called the call out, that's been around for as long as I can remember. So that was with that style, and it transitioned into every other style afterwards. So a typical thing would be, say there was a party that night, mm-hmm. and everybody was kind of around, dancing with the, with the ladies, and all of a sudden a cat would break off, point at the guy that he wanted to call out. And back then, when you called a guy out, you pointed him out, but then you actually drew a line. And the two of you, stepped to the line, and then the circle, formed, around you. Now, head snatching was very theatrical. It was a very theatrical piece of the art because there was a lot of different kinds of movements. There were sounds being made, and there were things that you did like hopping and worming to get away from being embarrassed. And so if someone were to walk up to you and try to grab your hat and do something with your hat, well, you might hop, you might worm, you might, swing your arms, to block his hands. So in all honesty, that's where that came from. That came out of necessity because you didn't want to be embarrassed in front of the, groups of people that, and groups of people that were there.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I know from being back in those days in high school and being at the jamborees.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me some of your experience. I've seen a few of your pictures at the jamborees. What was those experiences like?
Oh man, the biggest thing at McClymonds was the first pep rally of the year, and the first pep rally signified that homecoming, was about to take place. So over the summer, everybody was polishing, all the moves and getting the gear, together. And if you were anybody or you were trying to make your name, that was the moment that you came out. And so a lot of the pictures that you see, there could be 15, 20, 30, boogaloos out there just kind of doing their thing, going at one another. And we had judges, and they would peel boogaloos off as they judged who were the better ones out there. And then when you got to the circle, you had you and another one, and you and this guy went head up. And that was to determine, more than likely, who was the guy that was going to represent the school. Not so much a mascot, but if anybody came up to the school, say we were playing Castlemont, and the word was somebody from Castlemont was going to call somebody out from Mac. Well, whoever that cat was that won at the beginning of that first pep rally, he was the representative. And so I would never put my name up in the pantheon of some of the greats that I'm going to talk about later, but nobody was coming up to my school and doing no damage. Not without meeting in the circle. That's just how it was. So,
that's how it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about this because a lot of times I know we get away from it.
Yes.
And that's the females.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. I had the experience and the humble time in when I was coming up, there was females that got down too.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come in the party, it was male dominated.
Yes.
But it was a few women in those parties.
Yes.
That would come out as well.
Exactly.
So I like to give a shout out to them women, but I want to bring them up real quickly because it's young women in the game right now, that's fighting for their spots and
yes.
all of that stuff. But
yes.
even back in your era,
mm-hmm.
were there women getting down?
When it came to the head snatching part of it, no. When it transitioned over into posing, absolutely. And the one group that I remember that was a standout, it was a group from Richmond, group of women, they were called the Green Machine. And honestly, they had no competition. And in fact, they could get down like the men got down. And so their mirror group was another group out of Richmond called the Black Operators. And so that's who they patterned themselves after. And to be honest with you, outside of them, and all respect to them because they could hold their own, they were the ones that held it down for years and years and years. I don't know where they are now. I just know that anytime I ask about other female groups in the Boogaloo world, I know that there weren't a whole lot, but the one that I know that stands out was the Green Machine. They used to dance at the talent shows at the Richmond Auditorium. I'm not quite sure who the other female groups that they danced against. I just know that every single time anybody came up against them, they won.
Now, I'm going to say this. I'm behind the camera doing the interview.
Okay.
But I'm so excited now, and I'm going back in my memory.
Okay.
But I'm a little younger than you.
Yes.
But I do have the experience of going to Moscone Park.
Yes, sir.
On Sundays.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me any type of knowledge of your experience? And did you privy that whole area of Mosswood when you was coming up?
Absolutely. Oakland has a history and a culture of not just dance, but music. And so how the art was created, not so much through records, but through live bands. And outside of the dancing, there were just a plethora of live bands and singers, and dancers all over the place. Well, Moscone Park used to give free concerts on Sundays. And it was a beautiful thing because it brought people from other neighborhoods into one centralized location. They might not ever come, and they got a chance to witness this art firsthand. So I got to see some of the best bands, some of the best boogaloos, some of the best battles. In fact, my first time ever seeing the Black Resurgence was out there, I didn't see the Messengers until a little bit later on. For us coming up, the Resurgence set the standard. Now, from that, you had myself, you had Canary, you had Derek Loving. Before Derek and Company, you had Rio Robot, you had James Hensley, you had Paps, you had Curtis Richardson. I mean, at that point, we were all just individual one-on-one dancers. And so we would go out there so that we could see everybody come and do their thing. And it was a beautiful, happy time. It was no gunplay, no fighting, no arguing, none of that. It was just healthy competition.
Healthy dancing,
healthy
man.
dance and competition.
Yeah.
And you came out there and you did your best and you threw down.
Wow. That's deep, brother. And I'm playing it back in my mind. And I'm so excited again about this interview because I was there as a younger Boogaloo, watching all of y'all, as the older teenagers get down. And I didn't do nothing but want to be just like y'all when I was coming up. I would come there, I would watch the groups, I would watch the individuals. Kenny Chambers.
Yes.
Man, Kenny Chambers blew my mind. And I wanted to be like that cat because of the Kenny Chambers hop.
Who didn't?
The Kenny Chambers hop.
Yes.
Dude.
Yes.
Back then.
Yes.
Blew my mind.
Yes.
And I was a little young kid trying to imitate Kenny all through every little battle I had.
Mm-hmm.
They say, do the Kenny Chambers hop.
Yes.
that was my signature move.
Yes.
Yes. But he was known for that.
Yes, he was.
And couldn't nobody touch him.
Nobody.
When he did that.
No.
When he broke down.
Yes.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
When he broke down.
Yes, sir.
And hopped back up.
Yep.
It was over with. It was over with.
It was over.
Truth to be told, man.
Yep.
I'm sorry I keep going
no.
my own thing.
Come on
but
in, man, because you bringing back memories for me,
absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
Him and Donald Jones.
Yes.
Were adversaries.
Yes.
And Kenny was the hop. Donald was the hand movement and the worm.
Yes.
So at some point you combine the two. And I think once the two were combined, the master of that was Donald. Okay? That was Donald Jones.
Right.
And so what I'm able to do is look at a lot of the styles now and see a lot of the OG influence in a lot of these styles, going forward.
Right.
And although these were the greats of that particular style, they weren't able to transition into this new thing that was coming along, which was called posing.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes what happens is when we talk about some of the greats and some of the OGs, we don't mention these guys because not a lot of people remember. Mm-hmm. And the head snatching or the head hunting was exclusive to West Oakland. It was a style that was created in West Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know anywhere geographically that they were doing it. And so my guess is right around the same time that we were head snatching out east, they were posing. And so those guys weren't able to make that transition, and for lack of better words, they kind of fell off and made way for the new generation. Now, I started out head snatching, but I was only exposed to it and involved in it for maybe a year and a half. So I didn't have to lose something and be reprogrammed. It wasn't a lot. So when I started into posing, it was a smooth transition for me. I could also see where some of the stuff in head snatching transitioned into posing, but a lot of that came a little bit later on. So I give East Oakland 100% credit for that, style, because that's where it came from. We had never seen it out west. The first person I ever saw pose was Noah Johnson. And for me, he was the best I'd ever seen do it that nobody really knows about. The best, hands down.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's history right there, man. I'm getting chill bumps. So I'm going to try to stay on track with the interview. But anyway, I was just thinking while you were talking, all the terminology that, for over the years, the terminology changes.
Yes.
And I'm bringing this up because moonwalking, backsliding,
Yes.
all of that stuff that, came in the supposedly 80s, 90s, or whatever. In the 70s,
Yes.
what I remember, it was called levitating.
That's exactly what we call it. It was called
levitating.
Yeah, moonwalking is a completely different dance.
Right.
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 When Michael got a hold of it.
Right.
Or I should say, when LA
Right.
got a hold of it.
Exactly.
Which is a whole nother story.
But where we from, we called it
backsliding.
levitating.
Well, I'm sorry, levitating.
Yes.
Correct. That's what we
We
called
called
it.
it levitating.
Now, for me, the best I'd ever seen levitate was a cat out of Oakland High. His name was Stedford. And he danced with the Electronical Four. And he was the best I'd ever seen do it.
Wow.
Now, from time to time, you're going to hear me mention names. And one of the things I want to say before I continue is that I'm speaking and I'm expressing myself exclusively from the way that I experienced this art.
Right.
And I experienced it from a West Oakland perspective.
Yes.
So someone else's perspective might be different. And if there's any information that anyone feels is incorrect, I respect it. And they should come and speak to Doug and tell their story. I can only speak from my perspective in the way that I experienced this art. I call it art because not everybody can do this. Now, I know it transitioned into this thing called street dancing, and I have respect for that. But it's not just dancing, because if it was just dancing, everyone could do it. It is an art, and there's a culture behind it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Absolutely. Well spoken, too, man.
Thank
well
you, sir.
spoken. As I know it, and as people ask me, and I, give my experience, being probably one of the youngest boogaloos that's still out here.
Yes.
53 years old.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday. But I was there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's nothing nobody told me, nobody, showed me.
Yes.
I was there for the experience myself, and I'm truly grateful for the pioneers like yourself that was doing it back then.
Appreciate
so
it.
I can witness it myself.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And it was nothing like it.
Right.
It was nothing like it because it spoke to our soul.
Yes, it did.
It spoke to our soul.
Yes.
We were in those areas where, challenges were.
Yes.
And the expression of this dance gave us an outlet.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It gave us a way to express ourselves to the point where if we had any issues in terms of trying to grow ourselves, we would express ourselves through this dance.
Absolutely.
This is where we got our courage from.
Yes.
This is where we got our style and our finesse.
Yes. Yes.
Even, and it's so crazy, even if we wanted to impress a girl,
Absolutely.
yes. We would do this dance in a party just to impress, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even if we wanted to speak to that brother that felt like we didn't belong,
Right.
this is where we did it at.
That's exactly.
It was no talking.
None.
It was all about the dance
Yes,
floor.
it was, and that was in place of a lot of the violence.
Yes.
I personally got involved in the dance in the first place, in the art, because it kept me out of trouble.
Yes.
It gave me something to do.
It saved my life.
As you know, the alternative was.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say Westwood Gardens.
Yes.
I'm going to say Campbell Village.
Yes.
I'm going to say Cypress Village.
Yes.
I'm going to say the Morehouses.
Yes.
I'm going to say Acorn.
Yes.
I'm going to say the Towers.
Yes.
Last but not least, I'm going to say Chestnut Court. It's
Yes.
something about Project Living
Man.
that produces a creativity that is unmatched. And
Yes.
again, I'm talking about West Oakland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the heart and the soul part of it, that's the creativity. That's what you pour into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding the history of it and understanding and knowing what drove us.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it wasn't money. It wasn't financial, because there was no money to be made back then.
None.
If you were less than lucky enough to get into a talent show, $50, maybe $100, if that.
If that.
And you were lucky if you were a group, understand you may have
Split
had to split that 3, 4, 5 ways.
So you got $10.
So you got $10. Now understand it was the 70s and the 80s, so that that was a little money. It was still change, but it was more than what we had. Right. And so the thing that drove us was completely different than how it may have driven other people who were claiming to be the creators of this art. We didn't have the mediums. We didn't have television. We didn't have radio. We didn't have Hollywood. We didn't have scouts, dance shows. We didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
So all it was for us was this, and it was the creativity of it, and
very
it was your
little
rep.
exposure.
Very little exposure.
Very little.
It was your rep.
Yeah.
I mean,
your
that's
rep.
all you had.
Yeah.
And so even now, you find guys in my age group who are they're very territorial about speaking in interviews, because in a competitive state, you never wanted to give your opponent the upper hand. So not only did you not want to have to expose any of your art unless it was doing battle, you didn't want to talk about it. So the thing that drove us was completely different than the thing that drives this new version of it. And so what I will say to the younger cats who are doing this is go back and understand, learn your history, and get the basics from the OGs, because there's something about the intangibles with this art. And if you don't get it, everything you do from that point going forward comes across as being inauthentic. It doesn't look real. And so what I believe is driving that generation back to the OGs is that anytime you take something and you have a tree and you have branches, well, as those branches get so far out, everything starts to get what I call watered down. And in essence, no disrespect, but everything starts to look the same. And so as people look at it, they begin to wonder, well, okay, everything looks the same. Where can I go for something that's original? Well, just know this, there's nothing new under the sun. So it's all been done before, but as original as you can get it is to come back to the OGs. And the importance of including them in this is because when you get so far out there, at some point you're going to want to come back. If you ostracize the history and the OGs, should you ever need to or want to come back, they're not there. So I have nothing but respect for how the art has evolved. I love what these young dancers are doing with the art. I love their contribution. All I'm saying is that if you want to take it further, then you have to come back and get some of the basics. You have to understand what you're doing and how you're doing it, where it comes from.
Right, and I agree with that 100%. That's why I'm doing my due diligence in coming back and finding the brothers like you that are still here that can give that knowledge. Because again, I keep it 100. I'm 53. I'm the youngest, so I can only go so far
Yes.
with my knowledge. I got to go to my elders that was in the game
Yes.
and get it from their perspective.
Yes.
You know, as you spoke on something earlier about West Oakland, what people don't understand back in the 70s, and even now in some areas, but we didn't go outside our area.
No. Everything
You know,
was insulated.
It was insulated.
Yes.
East Oakland didn't come to West Oakland unless you were brought to West Oakland.
Brought to West Oakland.
And the same vice versa. West
Yes.
Oakland didn't go to East Oakland unless you was brought there.
Absolutely.
So we crossed our paths, but back then you were pretty much
Confined
in your
area.
environment.
That's correct.
So for me, you know, when I learned the Boogaloo and when I seen it, I only seen it and learned it in my area.
Absolutely.
Nowhere else.
Nowhere else.
Not LA.
Nope.
Not Fresno.
No.
Not East Oakland.
No.
Nowhere but West Oakland.
Absolutely.
So when I got outside my area and I seen all these other dances,
Yes.
which was at Mosswood.
Right.
That's where the hub was.
Yes.
So that's what my experience was, and I'm enjoying this interview so much. I want to stay on point
Yes.
and say, what was the type of music y'all danced to?
Funk.
Period.
Funk. I mean, if you want to come back to ground zero and the epicenter of this dance, it's the funk. It's the drums and the bass.
No disco.
Nope. It was funk music. And understand the larger part of it was bands.
Right.
Bands related. But yeah, funk. And you got to remember, the Bay Area is unique in that it's a hotbed of culture and different movements. And so it makes sense that the movements, the music, and the culture would all blend. So you have guys like you and I that come from what's considered underprivileged neighborhoods with not a whole lot to do, but have an imagination. And so with that, we can combine all those things. And even if we didn't live through some of the movements, culturally, we had aunties and uncles and grandparents who explained to us what those movements were.
That's right.
You know, we had the Black Panther movement.
Yes.
We had the hippie revolution. We had the Vietnam War demonstrations. I mean, so there's so much culture here. And out of that culture, and because the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken, I think we have 13 or 14 different counties. So everybody experienced those movements in their own way. For us, a bunch of little kids that needed to figure out how to express ourselves, the dance was the way for us to take all those things and have them collide and then create this art. And I don't have a problem with anyone saying or understanding that they had a contribution to the art. The issue I have is when people lay claim to creating it.
Yes.
And so my whole goal is to make sure that that distinction comes back to Oakland, California, because Boogaloo was created in the streets of Oakland, California. And the contributors were East, West, and I'm gonna even say North.
Yes.
But it was an art that was homegrown out of these streets.
That's powerful right there, man. Coming from a 60-year-old Boogaloo, and it's only a few of y'all out there.
Just a few.
Just a few out there, man.
Yes.
And I respect and love and appreciate all y'all that's out there. So, you know, I'm trying to bring this to the full frontier of where it's supposed to be. That's my job. That's my angle. With this thing, man, as social media and the internet is bringing all this stuff back now,
Yes.
we do have a platform and we do have the exposure because we bringing all of you guys back and doing interviews and doing some video work and all of that, man. And it's so exciting for everybody to take interest back in Oakland.
Absolutely.
You know, and trying to do their history and their research. And, you know, I say to any of them, man, just, you know, a lot of these cats is coming out of town. They taking trips to Oakland because they seeing us on the internet and saying, hey, are you such and such on the internet.
Yes.
So now they get to see Boogaloo Bill
Yeah.
out of Oakland, California, West Oakland, California, by way of San Francisco,
Yes, sir.
which is some good history for me today.
Yes.
You know, because again, just like I did an interview with Dancer 64
Yes.
out of Sacramento,
Yes.
but learned in Oakland.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So now the extension of the arms go out, and it's really understanding where you came to,
Yes.
and you learned that art.
Yes.
You came to ground zero, like you just said,
Yep.
and that's where the art came
That's where
from.
it came from.
So the authenticity in a Boogaloo
Yep.
out of Oakland,
Yes.
you're gonna see off the bat,
Yes.
like I seen it,
Absolutely.
like I seen it in you, like you know what I mean. It's like it's unwritten, man. It's just you can't deny it.
No.
And like you, I give all respect to everybody, LA, Fresno, everybody who done what they done
Yeah.
to contribute to the
contribute
art.
to the art. Exactly.
Period.
Yeah. But you
But
can't. But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Oakland-
You can't claim that you know that you created it. I mean, I don't want to dredge up an old argument or an old conversation. But the fact of the matter is that wherever there's an art, there's a history and a culture that supports that art. I spoke briefly about the history and the culture here and how it supported the art form called Boogaloo. So when I hear, and I'm gonna name names, when I hear guys like Boogaloo Sam say that he created this art form and he's from Fresno, what I'm looking at is the history and the culture that supports the art form. Now, I know that Fresno has always largely been a farming community, and that's no disrespect to anyone who lived there then, who currently lives there. But I don't see the history or the culture that supports an art form coming out of there like that. There's been no monumental movements there that would support an art like this. So again, I want to respect the fact that they have contributed to it. And they call theirs electric Boogaloo. And I understand why. Because when you're trying to emulate something, if you want to call it your own, you don't want it to be exact. You want it to be a little different.
Yes.
All I want to know is this. If you want the right answers, you have to ask the right questions.
Right.
And I have one question. What were you doing before this? Because that'll tell you, and I guarantee you they don't have the stories that we have here in Oakland to support the culture, the art, and the movements that collided to create this art. They don't have that. There's no way they could. Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is that I just want that to come to some sort of impasse where Oakland gets the respect for being the creators. And there are many links, and some of the links people know about, some don't. The biggest link to Fresno and this art is the Fresno Relays.
Yes.
And most people...
And we heard about that when we was young.
Okay.
We heard about
that.
You know what I mean?
That's one part.
And some of us went to the Fresno Relays. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I wasn't one of them. I was too young.
Yes.
But when y'all came back,
yes,
y'all told the stories.
And that's what it was.
And that's what it was back then in the 70s.
Yes.
But what I heard, again, being a product of my environment, I couldn't frequent Sacramento back in the day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I had to stay in West Oakland.
Yes.
But I understand that Fresno went up to Sacramento.
Yes.
Oakland went up to Sacramento.
Yes.
To get into these talent shows.
Absolutely.
And all these challenges back then. And
Yes.
that's where a lot of the guys met when they went outside of their own environments.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, my hat's off to those cats, man.
Absolutely.
I don't even have no issues with none of that.
None of it.
But all we're doing is bringing our history to the forefront.
Yes.
And being factual about it.
And making sure it garners their respect. And the only reason I say that is because there have been many ways that people have been able to take advantage of this art.
Yes.
Financially and every other kind of way.
Yes.
People have bought and sold homes, real estate, opened businesses off the backs of this art.
Yes.
Because of the vehicles that they had driving it. We didn't have those same vehicles, so we were never able to take advantage of it.
Right.
All I'm saying is that you have people here now who should be able to take advantage of it and benefit in the exact same way, if not better, than the ones who stole the art.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about back here at home. I'm
Right.
talking about cats from the Messengers, cats from the Resurgence, cats from the Gents, you know,
Yeah.
cats like me,
Derek and Company.
Derek and Company, you know,
Yeah.
one-on-one, you know, the Black Operators, the Green Machine, you know, cats from Berkeley, North Oakland, the OGs. They should be
Yeah.
able to benefit.
Yeah.
And the only way that's going to happen is if we get the recognition and the history of it back here, so that now we can start teaching classes not just here, but we can
But
start
abroad.
teaching classes abroad.
Right.
You know, it's a big pie now.
And judging and all of that.
all of that.
Yeah.
All of
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So moving along real
Yes, sir.
quick in the interview, I want to move to back then. I know you seen some stuff.
Yes.
I know you probably seen some talent shows, some 101s,
Mhm.
and some real adventures, man.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
me, I know you got a story for me, man.
Okay. Some of the greatest talent that I saw assembled in one place was at the talent shows that they used to give at the Oakland Auditorium. Now it's called the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center.
Yeah.
And they were talent shows, and it wasn't just for Boogaloos, it was for anyone that had talent. So if you sang, if you played in a band, if you danced, then that was the place to be. Once again, you had one place where people could come out of their communities to a centralized location and see talent that they wouldn't otherwise see. That was a great platform to see talent shows. And see all the different dancers and all the different groups, you know, that were out there. The greatest one-on-one battle I ever witnessed was John Murphy versus Derek Loving.
Wow. With your own eyes.
With my own eyes. In West Oakland, Poplar Park, they gave an event called Social Hour, Wednesday nights, 7 to 10. And the word was that John was going to be there. Derek specifically wanted to be there that night, and Derek never came. He never came any other time, but when the word got out that John was going to be there, Derek came. And this is before Derek and Company. This is kind of what put West Oakland, for lack of better words, when it came to the posing style, this is what kind of served notice that West Oakland was kind of in the game, and we wasn't backing away, and we was going to be coming forward, and we was going to be coming strong. Well, they went head up, and Derek won.
Wow.
And so that precipitated everything in terms of the respect that West Oakland got when it came to the posing game. Now, what you got to remember is that even though East Oakland is on one side of Lake Merritt and West Oakland is on the other side, a lot of the people that lived in East Oakland at one point in time lived in West Oakland and migrated from west to east. So they had family.
Just like me.
They had families,
like me.
so they would go back and forth.
Right.
They had cousins, uncles, aunties, you know, the whole nine. So it's not that East Oakland dancers didn't know that there were dancers in West Oakland. But East Oakland was predominantly groups.
Right.
West Oakland, in terms of those talent shows at the Oakland Auditorium, we didn't get involved in those because outside of Derek and Company, West Oakland wasn't known for groups. So the majority of the artists that I was able to witness in those talent shows were all East Oakland bred.
Right.
And so the groups were a necessity because that was the only way you could get into a talent show and compete. No one really wanted to see one person get on stage and just, you know, kind of do their thing. So we witnessed, you know, the Messengers. We witnessed the Resurgence. Of course, for us, they were the gold standards. For me, the Resurgence were the gold standard because there's a thing now called branding. And everybody wants to be branded. They want to get their name out there, and that's their brand. Well, in the 70s, the closest thing we ever knew to branding was the Resurgence because we saw them on billboards. We saw them in picture. We saw them on posters. We heard about them on the radio. The vehicle that they had driving them was a gentleman by the name of Jay Payton. And Jay Payton hosted an event called the Bay Area Top Star Awards. And for the dancing category, for years and years and years, the Resurgence always won. So for us in lights, the Resurgence were the closest thing that we understood to branding. And going to one of their shows was like going to a Broadway show. I mean, it was the tuxedos and the top hats and the canes. Sound familiar, my brother?
Yes, sir. Standing on the shoulders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Showmanship, the steps. So they combined a whole lot.
Because they were steppers.
They were steppers.
You know,
right?
Yeah. They were definitely steppers.
They were steppers and they were performers. But seeing them, being a kid from Oakland, it gave me the understanding that I could be something. I could be like that.
Yes.
And we had never seen anything like that.
Yes.
I didn't hear about the Messengers until a little later.
Mm-hmm.
So when this art form transitioned into this thing called street dancing, if there was such a thing back then, the Messengers would have been that.
Right.
And the Resurgence would have been more performers.
Right.
Steppers.
Right.
So they were alike, but different.
But different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Yes.
Just hearing the history or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But amazing story, man. Amazing stories, man. I think we have taken it back, in this episode. For history's sake, we got a lot of good jewels out of it. And I'm going to move it forward because we're getting closer to the close of it.
Yes, sir.
And what I want to say or ask at this point, what do you see today? I heard you say you're proud of the young dancers and stuff like that. What do you see today as a generational gap or a mistake that we're making as OGs in bringing the youngsters and bridging that gap? And what can we do to make it better?
I think the difference in terminology in terms of what we call things is probably one of the biggest separations. I said something early on that there's nothing new under the sun. So I can look at a performer of the art and I can pull out things that we were doing way back when, and they're calling it something else. I think what happened over the years was we called it Boogaloo. Boogaloo was the umbrella. And there you had all these different styles, but it was still Boogaloo. Now they've taken it and they've chopped it up. And now you have all these different styles. And I understand why that was done purposely, because if you take, going back to the hood now, if you take a whole and you chop it up, you can make more.
Right.
And that's as far as I'm going with that.
Right.
But it's the same thing with this dance. So it was all about money. That's why it actually happened.
Right.
But that's also the reason that things are starting to become watered down, because it's individualistic. And so when you tell someone Boogaloo, they say, oh, no, that's not Boogaloo, that's this style. Or that's not Boogaloo, that's this style. And a lot of it is because they don't understand what Boogaloo is. And so I think that the first thing we have to do as the OGs is we have to get rid of the competitive juices that we were raised with. And that's hard. We have to get rid of that. And we have to embrace what this new generation is doing, because we in our 50s and 60s, Doug.
Yeah.
We can't do this forever.
No.
So, because we can't do this forever, I'm one who can't do it any longer. I've had 2 hip replacements on one side and an arthritic hip on the left side. So I can't do it anymore.
You can still move them hands. I seen you. I seen you do it. I'm like, oh, there you go, right there. So if you had to get it in that chair right there, you know what I mean?
It is what it is.
I already seen it, man.
So that's why I appreciate brothers like you, 6'4", Dana, Rio, Kearney, William Randolph, and I'm sure I'm missing some folks, but all of you guys who are still able to do this dance, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Get down.